Have you ever noticed how the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful one? Think about it. The people who speak the most, who constantly explain, justify, argue, or try to prove themselves, do they really hold the power? Or is it the one who sits back, calm, composed, speaking little, but making every word count? Silence has a way of unsettling people. It makes them wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, and what you're capable of. It creates mystery, and mystery creates influence. When you don't reveal everything, when you hold back your words, you hold on to your power. And that is what makes silence so much stronger than noise. You see, power isn't about how loud you can shout or how much space you can take up. True power is about control. Control of your emotions, control of your responses, and control of the energy you give away. And silence gives you that control. It's not weakness, it's not submission, and it's definitely not ignorance. It is a weapon, a shield, and a statement all at once. In a world where everyone is screaming to be heard, silence is what sets you apart. Silence makes people listen. Silence makes them lean in. And silence reminds them that you don't need to fight for attention. You already have it. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped reacting to every word, every insult, every challenge? What if you no longer felt the need to explain yourself to those who don't even deserve your explanation? What if you chose silence instead of noise? The truth is, the more silent you become, the more powerful you get. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people mistake it for weakness, for passivity, or for being timid. They think that if you don't respond right away, if you don't argue back, if you don't defend yourself loudly, then somehow you have lost. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. It's the ultimate discipline because it requires strength to hold your tongue when every part of you wants to respond. It requires power to remain calm when you are provoked. And it requires wisdom to know that not every battle deserves your words. Imagine a situation where someone insults you, trying to push your buttons, waiting for you to lash out. Most people will take the bait instantly, throwing words back, raising their voice, and engaging in an endless back and forth that solves nothing. But the one who remains silent in that moment instantly flips the dynamic. Because now the other person doesn't have control anymore. You do. Your silence forces them to question themselves, to doubt if their words even reached you, and it leaves them unsettled. They were expecting a fight, but instead they are faced with composure. That composure is power. When you speak without thought, you give away your control. Every time you argue out of anger, every time you try to prove yourself to people who don't matter, you are letting your emotions dictate your actions. And when your emotions control you, others can control you too. But silence breaks that chain. When you choose not to respond immediately, you give yourself space to think, to observe, and to respond only if it serves you. Silence is not about doing nothing. It is about doing something greater. It is about taking charge of your reaction. Think about the people you truly admire in your life. The leaders, the mentors, the figures you look up to. How often are they the ones shouting? How often are they the ones constantly explaining themselves? Rarely ever. The most respected individuals are usually those who speak little but mean every word. They understand the value of silence because silence gives their words weight. When you are silent most of the time, people listen carefully when you finally choose to speak. But if you are always talking, always explaining, always defending, your words lose value. Control through silence doesn't mean you never speak up. It doesn't mean you allow others to walk over you. Quite the opposite. It means you choose your moments wisely. Instead of reacting to everything, you respond only when it truly matters. And when you do, your words carry force because they are rare, deliberate, and backed by discipline. Silence gives you the power of timing, and timing is everything. Let's look at this from another perspective. In negotiations, silence is one of the most powerful tactics. When you stay quiet after someone makes an offer, they feel uncomfortable. Most people rush to fill that silence with more words, often giving away more than they intended. Why? Because silence makes people nervous. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know where you stand. And that uncertainty forces them to reveal more, while you give away nothing. That's control. Even in your personal life, silence can change the way people treat you. If you're always quick to justify yourself, people start to expect it. They push and you explain. They challenge and you react. But when you decide not to engage, when you stop giving away pieces of yourself every time someone demands it, you build strength. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. Your silence becomes a barrier that protects your energy and your dignity. There's a saying, never argue with a fool, because from a distance, no one can tell who is who. When you get dragged into pointless arguments, you lower yourself to a level that doesn't serve you. But silence elevates you above it. Silence says, your words don't move me. You don't have that power over me. And that, right there, is control at the highest level. It is refusing to hand over your peace of mind for the sake of temporary satisfaction. Of course, silence is not always easy. It's tempting to react, to defend yourself, to prove your point. But the more you practice silence, the more you'll see how liberating it is. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to respond to every provocation. When you realize that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on meaningless battles, silence becomes second nature. Silence also gives you clarity. When you don't rush to speak, you listen more, you observe more, you pick up on details others miss. And in that quiet observation, you gain knowledge. Knowledge is power, and silence is the channel through which you acquire it. Those who speak too much often reveal more than they should, while those who remain silent collect more than they give. In the end, silence is not about shutting down your voice. It's about amplifying your power. It's about knowing when to speak and when to hold back. It's about understanding that control of yourself is the greatest control of all. When you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, no one can control you. So the next time you feel the urge to respond immediately, to argue, to defend, to prove yourself, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer will be no. And in that moment of silence, you will realize that you haven't lost. You've won. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Every day, your energy is under attack. Not always in obvious ways, but in subtle moments, arguments that aren't worth your time, conversations that drain you, the constant need to explain yourself to people who will never truly understand you. Words are powerful, but they also cost energy. Every time you speak, you're spending a currency that can never be replenished in that exact moment. And most people spend it recklessly. They talk without thinking. They react without pause, and they scatter their focus on people and situations that don't deserve it. Silence, however, is how you protect that energy. Silence is how you keep your power from leaking into places where it doesn't belong. When you choose silence, you're not just avoiding unnecessary conflict, you're guarding your mind. Think about how much energy gets wasted when you engage in endless debates, or when you try to defend your decisions to those who aren't even invested in your growth. It's like pouring water into a bottomless bucket. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough. But when you stop speaking into the void, when you no longer feel the need to justify yourself to everyone, you reclaim that energy. You save it for the things that truly matter. Silence allows you to direct your focus inward, instead of scattering your thoughts outward into arguments and explanations. You keep them with you. That's how progress is made. Not by talking about what you're going to do, but by actually doing it. Every time you stay silent in the face of unnecessary noise, you're choosing growth over distraction. And growth requires energy. It requires a mind that isn't drained by negativity and drama. There's also something about silence that sharpens your awareness. When you're not the one doing all the talking, You notice more. You start to pick up on details in people's tone, in their body language, in the way they reveal things about themselves. While others are busy running their mouths, you're collecting information. That information gives you an edge, because the person who knows more but speaks less is always in control. Silence becomes your way of conserving mental strength, while simultaneously expanding your understanding. Consider this. When you argue with someone, even if you win the argument, what do you really gain? A fleeting sense of satisfaction. Maybe. But what do you lose? Time, peace of mind, energy that could have been spent building something worthwhile. Silence, on the other hand, robs the other person of their victory. It gives them nothing to feed off of. The moment you stop reacting, you stop fueling the fire, and the fire dies out quickly when there's no oxygen coming from you. That's how silence protects you. It starves the chaos until it has no choice but to disappear. There's also a deeper level to this. Silence doesn't just protect you from external noise, it protects you from internal noise too. We live in a world where our minds are constantly flooded. Opinions from strangers, arguments on social media, endless noise from people who have nothing to do with our path. When you learn to silence yourself, you learn to silence the chatter inside your head. That inner quiet allows you to focus on what truly matters to you. It allows you to tune out the distractions and tune into your purpose. People often underestimate how much focus is lost in defending themselves. The need to always explain, always justify, always prove something. It's exhausting. And the more you do it, the more control others have over you, because they dictate where your energy goes. Silence is freedom from that cycle. It says, I don't owe you an explanation. My life speaks for itself. And when you live like that, your energy stays with you. You invest it in your goals, in your discipline, in your vision, not in arguments that will be forgotten tomorrow. Even in relationships, silence can protect you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not react. When people are angry, they often throw words like weapons, hoping you'll pick them up and use them to fight back. But when you refuse, when you choose silence instead, you rob those words of their power. You keep your dignity intact. You keep your focus on solutions instead of spiraling into more conflict. And often, silence diffuses situations faster than words ever could. You see, silence doesn't mean weakness, and it doesn't mean avoidance. It means conservation. It means that you value your energy so much that you refuse to waste it on things beneath you. It means that you choose to place your focus where it actually makes a difference. And when you live that way, something incredible happens. You start to see results. You start to notice how much faster you move forward when you're not drained by every small distraction. You start to see how much more clarity you have when you're not caught up in proving yourself to others. There's a saying, where focus goes, energy flows. And if your focus is constantly being hijacked by drama, by gossip, by the need to explain yourself, then your energy will be scattered. But when you protect your silence, you protect your focus. You stop feeding the noise and you start feeding your goals. That's when silence becomes not just a tool, but a strategy for living with strength and intention. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, the next time you feel the urge to defend every choice you make, remind yourself, not everything deserves your words. Not every situation deserves your energy. Your silence is not empty. It is full of power, discipline, and control. And when you protect your energy through silence, you gain something priceless. The focus to build the life you truly want. Respect is not something you can demand. It's not something you can buy. And it's certainly not something you get by shouting louder than everyone else. Real respect is earned, and one of the most powerful ways to earn it is through silence. There's a weight that comes with silence, a presence that makes people pay attention without you ever asking them to. When you don't feel the need to fill every space with words, people naturally lean in when you finally do speak. Your silence commands respect without you having to lift a finger. Think about the people in your life who truly hold authority. The ones you instantly notice when they walk into a room. Most of the time, They're not the ones talking over everyone else. They're the ones who sit back, who observe, who let others speak first. And when they do speak, the entire room quiets down because they know those words carry weight. That weight comes from silence. Because when you don't waste words, when you don't scatter your voice in every direction, the few things you choose to say are valued more deeply. Silence creates an aura of composure. People respect composure because it's rare. Most people are quick to anger, quick to defend themselves, quick to speak without thinking. But when you're the one who doesn't rush to react, who takes your time, who chooses not to respond immediately, you stand out. Others see that as strength. They notice that you're not easily shaken, not easily provoked, and not desperate for approval. And respect naturally flows toward those who carry themselves with that kind of restraint. There's also something about silence that makes people curious. Human beings are naturally drawn to mystery. When you reveal everything about yourself, when you speak endlessly about your thoughts, your plans, your feelings, you remove all the intrigue. But when you hold things back, when you remain silent, people want to know more. They wonder what's going on in your mind. They lean in closer. They respect the fact that you don't need to overshare to validate yourself. Silence creates an invisible line, a boundary that says, you don't get all of me unless I choose to share it. That boundary commands respect. Imagine being in a heated argument. Two people are shouting, throwing words like weapons, neither one really listening. And then one person suddenly goes quiet. They stop feeding the fire. The silence is louder than any word that could have been spoken. In that moment, everyone notices. Even the one shouting begins to feel uneasy. Why? Because silence shifts the balance of power. It says, I'm not here to lower myself into chaos. I don't need to. And people respect that level of self-control. They respect the person who refuses to be dragged into the noise. In leadership, silence is one of the greatest tools. A leader who constantly talks, who constantly explains and justifies, loses authority quickly. But a leader who speaks less, who listens more, and who waits until the right moment to deliver a clear, decisive statement earns respect effortlessly, because people see that as wisdom. They see that as confidence. Silence communicates, I don't need to prove myself to you. My presence is enough, and that kind of presence leaves an impression long after words are forgotten. Silence also forces others to measure their words. When you remain silent, people start talking more, often revealing more than they intended. They fill the space you leave open. And in that space, they begin to recognize their own noise. They notice their own lack of control. And while they are unraveling, your silence stands strong. They can't help but respect the person who has nothing to prove and nothing to defend. Think of how many times you've seen someone talk themselves into trouble because they couldn't remain quiet. Words spilled out. Emotions took over, and they lost credibility. Now think about the opposite, the person who didn't take the bait, who stayed calm, who let the noise pass them by, who looked more powerful, who gained more respect. It's always the one who held their silence. Because silence, when used intentionally, is not emptiness, it's confidence. There's another dimension to this. Silence shows people that your validation doesn't come from them. When you don't feel the need to argue or prove yourself, you show that your sense of worth is internal, not external. And people respect those who validate themselves. They may not admit it, but they notice. They see that you're not chasing approval, that you're not desperate to be understood, that independence is magnetic. It's what makes people take you seriously without you having to force them to. Respect, at its core, comes from strength. And silence is one of the purest forms of strength because it's not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Anyone can shout. Anyone can argue. Anyone can throw words into the air. But not everyone can hold back. Not everyone can stay calm when triggered. Not everyone can remain silent when their ego is begging them to react. When you master that, you stand apart. And standing apart is what makes people respect you. So the next time you're in a room, notice the dynamics. Notice who talks the most and who talks the least. And then pay attention to who gets respected the most. You'll find that silence has a way of creating authority on its own. You'll find that people respect the person who doesn't try too hard to be respected, because respect that is forced never lasts. But respect that is silently commanded is undeniable. Silence is not about being absent. It's about being present in a way that doesn't require noise. It's about carrying yourself with so much discipline that people have no choice but to notice. And when they notice, when they lean in, when they pause to hear the few words you do speak, that's when you realize silence is not just golden. It's powerful, and it commands respect without you ever having to ask for it. Silence is not just about what happens around you, it's about what happens within you. The world is noisy, but the loudest noise often comes from our own thoughts. The endless chatter in your head, the replaying of past mistakes, the worry about the future, the craving for validation. This inner noise is what drains the most energy. Learning to embrace silence is how you begin to quiet that storm. And when you do, you start building a kind of strength that can't be shaken by anything outside of you. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone says something negative and they fire back. Someone questions their choices and they rush to defend themselves. A small inconvenience happens and their emotions explode. This cycle repeats because they haven't learned the discipline of silence. When you can't sit with yourself in silence, you're always at the mercy of the world around you. But when you learn to master silence, you master your emotions. And mastering your emotions is the highest form of strength. Think about the moments when someone tries to provoke you. Maybe they insult you. Maybe they challenge you. Maybe they doubt you. The immediate temptation is to answer back, to prove yourself, to push their words down with your own. But when you choose silence, you break the cycle. Instead of reacting, you create a pause. That pause is everything. In that pause, you have space to breathe, space to think, space to decide how you want to show up. That pause is where power lives. Because power is not reacting to everything. It's choosing carefully what deserves your attention. Silence also teaches you patience. It's easy to be strong when everything is calm, but real strength is tested in chaos. When the world throws challenges at you, silence becomes your training ground. It forces you to slow down when your emotions want to speed up. It allows you to process your feelings instead of being consumed by them. The more you practice silence in difficult moments, the more resilient you become. You stop being controlled by anger, fear, or frustration, and you start controlling them. That's emotional mastery. There's another level to this. Silence allows you to observe yourself. When you stop talking, when you stop defending, when you stop reacting, you finally hear your own inner voice. And often, that voice has been buried under noise for years. In silence, you realize what triggers you, what drains you, what fuels you. You learn to recognize the difference between what's urgent and what's important. You learn to separate ego from wisdom. This awareness is how you grow stronger from the inside out. Many people think power comes from controlling others, but true power comes from controlling yourself. The person who can't control their emotions is easily manipulated. All it takes is the right word, the right insult, the right pressure, and they fall apart. But the one who has built inner strength through silence cannot be swayed so easily. They are not reactive. They are responsive. They are not fragile. They are unshakable. And that kind of person naturally rises above the chaos around them. Look at the people who inspire you the most. The ones who remain calm under pressure, who carry themselves with quiet confidence. Their strength doesn't come from yelling louder than everyone else. It comes from the discipline of silence. They don't need to fight every battle because they've already won the battle within themselves. They've mastered their impulses, and that mastery shows up in how they move through the world. That is the power silence builds inside you. Silence is also a form of healing. When life gets overwhelming, when pain weighs heavy, when confusion clouds your vision, silence becomes the space where you recover. It's in silence that you reconnect with yourself, where you gather your strength again. It's in silence that you remind yourself who you are and what you stand for. You can't do that when you're constantly talking, constantly explaining, constantly letting the noise of the world into your mind. Only in silence do you regain your center. There will always be people who mistake your silence for weakness. They'll think you're avoiding, that you're afraid, that you're passive. Let them think what they want. Their opinion doesn't define your strength. You don't need to shout to prove you're strong. You don't need to react to prove you're confident. Your silence proves it on its own, because the one who doesn't react is the one who is truly in control. The one who doesn't let emotions dictate their actions is the one who is truly powerful. And here's the truth. Silence is not about saying nothing forever. It's about creating the space to say the right thing at the right time. It's about choosing wisdom over impulse, clarity over chaos, composure over weakness. It's about knowing that strength isn't shown by how quickly you can fire back, but by how deeply you can hold yourself together when everything around you is trying to pull you apart. So when life tests you, and it will, remember that silence is your anchor. It keeps you steady when emotions want to sweep you away. It gives you power when others try to provoke you. It gives you mastery over yourself. And that mastery is what separates the strong from the fragile. Every moment you choose silence, you're not giving up. You're building up. You're building patience. You're building resilience. And you're building a kind of inner strength that no one can take from you. Because at the end of the day, true mastery isn't about conquering others. It's about conquering yourself. And silence is the path to that mastery. It builds strength where noise only builds weakness. It gives you peace where chaos only creates exhaustion. And once you learn to hold that silence, once you learn to sit with it and use it, you'll realize that silence is not emptiness. It's power in its purest form. When you stop talking so much, something powerful happens. You start doing more. Silence has a way of redirecting your energy away from explanations and into execution. Most people spend their lives telling others what they're going to do, defending why they're doing it, or arguing with people who don't even matter. They drain themselves trying to be understood, trying to be approved of, trying to convince others that their path is valid. But here's the truth. No explanation is ever as convincing as action. Silence frees you from the need to explain, and it channels your strength into becoming. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone talk endlessly about their goals? They'll say, I'm going to start this business, or I'm going to change my life, or I'll prove everyone wrong. They speak loudly, but months later, nothing has changed. Words are cheap when they're not backed by action. And often, the more people talk about what they're going to do, the less they actually do it. Why? Because talking gives them a false sense of accomplishment. It feels like progress, but it's really a distraction. Silence breaks that illusion. Silence keeps you focused on the work, not the talk. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. Not everyone needs to understand your vision. Not everyone is meant to support your path. And when you try to drag everyone along by explaining every decision you make, you lose time and focus. Silence, on the other hand, says, watch me. It removes the need to justify and replaces it with undeniable results. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth when your actions already prove it. Silence also protects your dreams. When you talk too much about your plans, you open the door for doubt, criticism, and negativity. People will project their fears onto you. They'll tell you why it can't be done, why you shouldn't bother, why it's impossible. And if you're not strong enough, their words will start to echo in your mind. But when you move in silence, you protect your vision from that interference. You keep your focus sharp, your energy contained, and your actions pure. Silence keeps your dreams safe until they are strong enough to speak for themselves through results. There's a reason why some of the most successful people in history often reveal their moves only after they've already made them. They understand that power lies in action, not explanation. While others are busy justifying, they are busy building. While others are seeking validation, they are creating impact. And when the results finally appear, they don't need to say a word. The outcome speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Silence transforms you because it shifts your mindset. Instead of worrying about how others perceive you, you focus on who you are becoming. Instead of reacting to doubt, you respond with results. Instead of trying to prove your worth through arguments, you prove it through achievement. This transformation is profound because it changes the way you move through the world. You are no longer chasing validation. You are creating evidence, and evidence cannot be argued with. Even in everyday life, silence turns into strength when it pushes you toward action. Imagine someone questioning your ability, doubting your dreams, or mocking your progress. You could argue with them, try to convince them, or fight for their approval. But what happens when you stay silent? Keep working, and let your success be the response. One day, the same people who doubted you are forced to face the reality of what you built. And in that moment, your silence was worth more than 1,000 words. There's also discipline in silence. When you don't feel the need to talk about everything, you build self-control. That control translates into consistency. And consistency is what makes transformation possible. You can't build anything great by being distracted with noise. You build it by staying focused, by working quietly, by pouring your energy into action instead of explanation. And over time, those actions compound into results that speak louder than anything you could have said. Silence also eliminates the pressure of constantly explaining yourself. When you tell the world your every move, you create expectations that weigh on you. But when you keep your path quiet, you're free to evolve, to adjust, to grow without scrutiny. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your process. You owe yourself progress, and progress thrives in silence. Because silence gives you the space to experiment, to fail, to rise again without the noise of outside judgment. The truth is, people respect results far more than explanations. You can argue with someone for hours about your choices, and they may still not understand, but when they see the life you've built, when they see the results you've created, the conversation ends. Action silences doubt in a way words never can. That is why silence transforms you. It shifts your energy from speaking to becoming. So stop telling everyone your next move. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't care. Stop wasting your energy on those who would rather argue with your words than witness your results. Put your energy where it matters, into the work, into the discipline, into the actions that create change. Because one day when the results show, you won't have to explain anything. The silence you held on to will have transformed into undeniable proof of your strength, your vision, and your persistence. In the end, silence is not about hiding. It's about building. It's about choosing results over recognition, progress over approval, and transformation over explanation. When you stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing it, silence becomes your loudest voice, and that voice cannot be ignored. Silence is not emptiness. It is not absence. It is not weakness. Silence is presence. It is control. It is clarity. It is the power to protect your energy, to command respect, to master yourself, and to transform your life without wasting a single breath on those who don't deserve it. In silence, you find the space to grow. In silence, you discover who you really are. And in silence, you create results that are undeniable. The world will always try to pull you into noise, arguments, distractions, endless battles for validation, but you are not here to spend your life explaining yourself. You are here to live it, to build it, to embody it. The more silent you become, the more the world will see the strength in you that no words could ever capture. So choose silence when it protects your peace. Choose silence when it keeps your energy focused. Choose silence when others expect you to break. And let your silence speak through your actions, through your resilience, through the life you build. Because the truth is this: people may doubt your words, they may ignore your explanations, but they cannot deny your results. And when you rise, when you succeed, when you prove yourself not with noise, but with action, your silence will have spoken louder than anything you could have ever said. The more silent you become, the more powerful you get. Carry that truth with you. Live it. Let silence be your strength, your shield, and your voice. And let the world witness the unstoppable force you become when you no longer waste your power on no